Welcome to my channel. I'm Augusto, a divorce and family law attorney in South Florida. Today's topic is, what are my 3 tips for good fathers? And this is very appropriate because every single one of the men that come to see me that have a child, they are concerned to be the best father that they can. So for tip number 1, I would say, is to have all communication in writing. Now, this doesn't matter whether you are married to your spouse and raising your children together, or you are separated, maybe you are divorced, or maybe you've never married the other parent. No matter the circumstances, the same goes for each one of those circumstances. And that is because confusion can create problems. So sometimes speaking with your spouse, with your ex-partner, talking about who's responsible for doing what for your children, you may have agreed in the conversation, but maybe you forgot to actually write it down. And what happens when we don't write something down? We forget. So maybe you didn't fulfill whatever the agreement was. Well, one of the things that you learn as an attorney, and I've been doing this for a very long time, is that when you don't carry through on what you promise your ex-partner, they remember the fact that you didn't fulfill that obligation, because that's what it creates. It creates an expectation. And if you don't fulfill that, they're disappointed. So if the pattern in the past when you were together was that the ex-partner actually did everything for your children, that memory will last a long time. And when I get hired to represent that father, one of the first things I have to overcome is that expectation that wasn't met in the past. So by writing it down, you're going to remember, you're going to add it to your calendar, you're going to fulfill that expectation, and you're going to feel even better about yourself. The other thing that it also makes sense to do it with is with your children. Children nowadays, especially the older ones, may ask you to do something with them. And when you put it in the calendar, it becomes something that you're going to live up to. They learn responsibility. They learn that they need to keep track of what they are going to be doing. And so you're teaching them a very valuable lesson for the rest of their life. And the bonus is that you're going to have a great time with your children. And at the same time, you're going to meet that expectation that you created with them. So put all communication in writing. Whether it was done initially in writing or not, follow through by writing it down in an email, in a text, memorialize it. It will serve you a great purpose. Tip number 2 is to make sure that you take an active role. And what do I mean by that? Well, when we are raising our children with your wife, with your husband, with your significant other, there's a tendency sometimes to get so busy, and especially with traditional relationships where the father may be the breadwinner and the ex-partner may be the person that actually takes the children to the medical appointments, to the dentist, the one that meets with the teachers when there's a teacher conference, the one that makes the decisions for their education. That may be very comfortable, but the problem is when you're no longer together and you want to actually be part of that decision-making process, it may be very difficult because the ex-partner may be so used to taking that lead that they may not include you in that decision process. So you need to make sure that you do take control of what's going on in your children's lives. And how do you do that? One easy way is to make sure that you meet all the teachers and speak with the teachers individually. And now that everything can be done by Zoom, it makes it very easy for you to get the access that you need. And let them know that you need to be included in parent-teacher conferences. If you know the name of the doctors, send them or speak with their assistant, their staff, and let them know that you need to be included as well. So that way, even if you cannot be there in person or via Zoom, you will get the information that you need. And that staff will remember to share the information with you. So that way you're part of the process if there's a necessity for a medical appointment. Creating that sets boundaries, and those boundaries will allow you to then, if you need to establish paternity, if you're in the middle of a divorce, you can then be included in the decision-making process. Florida law supports that basis to have shared parental decision-making. But you need to make sure that it actually happens and that it's not just a designation in writing and that you're not part of it. So lean in, make sure that you take an active role. Tip number 3 is quality over quantity. Florida doesn't have a hard rule as to what is an acceptable time-sharing agreement. So each family gets to decide what is an appropriate amount of time sharing that the child has with each parent. So when I sit down with a client, one of the first things that we review is what is the work schedule like? Because if the work schedule takes them away from where they live for extended periods of time, doing a equal time sharing where you spend the same, where the child spends the same number of overnights with the mom and with the dad may be very difficult. And sometimes it may actually not be in their best interest. And so if that's the case, we need to make sure that we create something that is in the best interest of the child, not something that the court may think that it's selfish and not conducive to making sure that the child has a good time with the parent. So when we craft the time sharing agreement, we look at the work schedule. We also look at what is the distance between where the father lives, where the mom lives, where the school is. Because if the mom and the dad live very far apart, one of the barriers that you're going to encounter, especially in South Florida, is the traffic. And so that child needs to be in school on time. The child needs to be picked up from school on time. The child should not have to wait. And if there's no day after school care, then that is one of the obstacles that has to be resolved. Proper planning will help in making sure that that happens. Because at the end of the day, the time sharing is to improve the relationship that you're having with your child during your time with the child. And in order to create those memories that you want to shape your child into becoming the best father that the child will be, and to look for a partner who will be the same for their child, you need to make sure that you create good memories. And that happens when you have quality time with your child. Examples of quality time: doing activities that your child enjoys. That would be number one. So if your child doesn't like sports, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to get them to just sit down and watch TV. Why not take them outside? Play some basketball. Do you like playing golf? Take them and teach them how to play golf. You're going to realize that the more engaged that they are, and the more engaged that you are doing the activities that they want to do, you're going to become a good father for the rest of their life, whether you're there or you're not. And you're going to also teach them how to be a good father. So those are my pointers for today. If you have further questions, especially if you're wondering how, and there's situations like this where the ex-partner is preventing you from having time with your children because maybe you're on the birth certificate, but you haven't established your legal rights. If you have questions related to that, take action now. Call my office and schedule a strategy session so that way we can talk about what is the action plan in order to establish your legal rights and be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your children. Call my office, schedule it now.